Hello everyone, this is Arafel bringing you another, it's not exactly a DOS game specifically. This is one of the Infocom interactive fiction games. These were available on a large variety of systems, starting with Unix mainframes. We actually have Atari versions of some of them. I'm playing the DOS version for convenience, and we do have several anthologies of the games around with 3.5-inch floppies that can't be read on any computers we have anymore, but beside the point. Anyway, Interactive Fiction by Infocom. This is Enchanter. Enchanter was the successor to the Zork series, which was based on Colossal Cave Adventure, which is the first known interactive fiction game. The concept of interactive fiction is, and it's like it sounds like, it's fiction and it's interactive. You basically have a story told in text form, but you, the player, control what the main character is doing. So we have here our intro text. The War Krill is causing problems. The Circle of Enchanters, they have their excuses, but I get the impression that they're more quibbling, indecisive body that doesn't want to stick their own necks on the line. So instead, they are sending you, a novice enchanter, in the hopes that Krill won't notice you, or if he does notice you, he'll assume you're no threat and ignore you. Whereas if one of them went, he would take action immediately. And if all of them went, well, that's not happening because they're bad at working together. In any case, as you can see, you get the description of where you are is all text, like everything else. You have a number of basic commands, so you can have... my finger's in the wrong spot. You have the inventory command, tells you what you're carrying. Many commands have abbreviations, like inventory you can just type I. If I read my spellbook, it tells me which spells it has. This is the big thing that differentiates Enchanter from the earlier Zork series. In Zork, you're a brawny adventurer type going through the ruins of the Great Underground Empire, looting it for treasure, basically. In this game, you are an Enchanter, of course. So instead of being a fighting type, you're a magic type. You have a spellbook, you have spells, and the way the spell system works is you have to memorize a spell before you can cast it. You have a limited memory capacity. When you cast a spell, the copy in your memory is used up and you need to re-memorize it to use it again. With the exception of the Nusta spell, which, as this notes, is the only thing you seem to have learned well, you can cast that any time without having to memorize it. Some of these spell names have kind of gotten into the community's mind space. There's a modern version of the Zork Infocom Interactive Fiction interpreter called Frotz, after the spell that makes things glow in the dark. The file format where they package the resources is called Borb, after this Borb spell that protects things. So let's start exploring around. Your main commands for movement are the 8 cardinal directions, which you can type out or just abbreviate with 1 or 2 letters. Preferably the short version, of course. Here we have... Is this where the... materials? Okay, let me check my map. No, I went right past it. Outside shack. Here we have an empty jug. Take jug. One of the tenets of adventure games is you take anything that is not nailed down, in general. There's also a broken lantern here. The broken lantern is largely useless, and it's also heavy, so you're better off not bothering with it. I can get over here to the brook, and we can fill the jug with water, because eating and drinking does become a concern, also resting. So you do want to have water on hand. Come down here to the deserted village, into the decrepit hovel. This is another important piece of what we need. There's an old crone here who goes,
I should have thought they would send someone more. They've all left. A great storm is brewing in the east, my friend, and they have all fled before it. Take this and be gone!
Anyway, spell scrolls are how you get new spells. As you can see, she gave us a scribbled scroll. Adjectives can be important. If you have multiple scrolls, they'll have different descriptors, and you can differentiate them by saying, read scribbled scroll, read whatever other scroll. Tattered, I think, was one. Anyway, this scroll has the Rezzrov spell, which will let you open even locked or enchanted objects within limits. If something is sufficiently well locked or enchanted, the spell will fail. Over here is the castle we're trying to get to. To the east is an iron gate. If we try to open it directly, that does not work, but we just got a spell to unlock this sort of thing, so I have to memorize it first. Before you can memorize a spell, it must be in your spell book. You can cast a spell directly from the scroll, but then the scroll is consumed and the spell is gone forever. Which is what your Nusto spell is for. Nusto will copy spells into your spell book. That also destroys the scroll, but then you can memorize the spell, use it as many times as you need, with the usual memorization limitations. So, now I can memorize Rezzrov. And the spell's names are all verbs, so Rezzrov Gate. And we have access to the castle. We're inside the gate here. I'll go north. And it is pitch black and there is evil in the darkness. One of the things the Zork series is known for are grus that lurk in the dark and eat you if you linger too long. Enchanter is unique in the Zork universe in that the grus are kind of referenced indirectly like this, but they're never mentioned by name. The game doesn't even recognize the word gru. Enchanter is the first in a 3-game series. The later games in the series do recognize gru. There are even grus appearing in almost as NPCs in one of them. And among other fun things you can do, you can cast the Frost spell on a gru when you're in a dark room, and you'll see a flash of light and hear creatures screaming and running off, because grus are allergic to light, basically. Can I do this in the dark? Yes. So the Frost spell makes things glow. You can frost yourself, which makes you glow. It's generally not a good idea because there are places where you do want the room to stay dark. And if you yourself are glowing, that can't happen while you're there. Some versions of the game, later on, they do give you the option to extinguish yourself. But it's safer to frost something that you can put down and pick up, like the book. In any case. So, interactive fiction. I'm showcasing this mainly because interactive fiction is a precursor to a lot of more recent games. Basically, you look at this, you think, this is nice, but, well, what else could you do with it? Well, one thing you could do is if you could have some kind of dial-in system and maybe a multi-threaded whatever, you could have multiple players doing things at once, interacting with each other, chatting, maybe fighting each other. And that's the basic concept of a multi-user dungeon, or MUD for short. Those were fairly common on dial-in bulletin board systems back in the day. Those ended up developing into what are now modern, massively multiplayer online games. So, in a sense, Zork is the precursor to games like RuneScape, World of Warcraft, Genshin Impact. In another direction, you have this, it's nice, you have all these descriptions, you have puzzles and interaction, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. So, another direction things went from this in the future was, instead of doing everything text, why don't we enhance it with pictures? So that went a couple different directions. One direction was basically text augmented with illustrations. That went into a number of games. I can't recall what those engines were called, but that included games like the Spellcasting 101 series, Sorcerers Get All the Girls, where you play as the geeky Ernie Eaglebeak, who is trying to flee his abusive father-in-law, become a sorcerer, and get the girl of his dreams. That you had one panel of the interface is just text like this, where you could type in commands, see the responses. There's a thing at the top that would show you what's going on in the area. In one corner, you'd have a compass that shows your exits, and then on the side, you'd have menus that show like objects in the current location, available verbs, inventory. And in addition to typing things in, you could select from the menus. You could click on the compass to move. You could click on things on the image. That further developed into, there are some freeware, not sure they're all freeware, but there are things available even today where you can create your own games like that. There's the RAGS game engine, game creation engine, I forget what that stands for, but that will let you make that kind of game. There are HTML development things like Twine, I believe, is one of them, where what comes out of it is text, but putting text into it is basically gone. It's just click on menus, you have hyperlinks that go with things. Very good for making choose-your-own-adventure type of games. Something more complicated like this you could do. It would take more work, of course, but let's keep exploring. There. This is a fun little reference. These mirrors show you another place and time. Here on the other side of the mirror, we see a bedraggled adventurer carrying a brass lantern and an elvish shore that is glowing dimly. That's the adventurer from the Zork series. At some point, I believe you actually get a spell that can summon him to you and have him fight something that you can't fight yourself because, again, you're a sorcerer type and not a fighter type. There he is again. Oh yeah, one of the things you want to do if you're playing a game like this is make a map things out. You also want to save frequently, because if you don't, you can get yourself killed, of course. These are generally not as death happy as, say, King's Quest games, which was the other thing I wanted to mention. Another way you can go by adding graphics is having things like the Sierra Quest games, where instead of just having an illustration, the whole graphic is kind of interactive in that you have your character that walks around that, and then you type in text commands to interact with it, but a lot of the game is graphic driven, and then later those developed to a fully point and click thing. So you got the whole Sierra Quest series, multiple series. You later developed into the ones that were just point and click. That's where you get things like Monkey Island. Monkey Island is a pretty great game, because it has this bizarre sense of humor. It's almost impossible to get yourself killed except in one specific place where you have to go out of your way to do it. And it was kind of like a reaction to how easy it was to die in Sierra Quest games. Anyway, as I was saying, Infocom games, it's generally not as easy to get yourself killed constantly. The one thing you do have to watch out for is misusing things and making the game unwinnable. For instance, in this game, the spell scrolls. There are some spells that are too powerful to copy into your spellbook, which means you get one shot to use them and that's it. This particular game, the main thing with that, maybe the only one, there's a spell that can dispel magic. There's one specific place you need to use that if you want to win the game. However, there are all sorts of other magical things. You can use it to, in the short term, solve some other puzzles. Also, pretty much everything is somehow magical in some ways, so you can use it in all sorts of places. And one of the things that happen with these games is the developers would think these things through, kind of foresee what you might try, and they took this into account. You can use that spell on just about anything, and it will have some effect that is appropriate. Um, so yeah, that's where I'm going. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm going with this. I'm not going to go full playthrough at this point. I've been more talking than playing anyway. Yeah, this has been Arafellum playing Enchanter from Infocom Interactive Fiction.